Yeah, have a record of it and then share it with Google Drive if people want to see it later. So.
I was talking with a couple of y'all about Washington, D.C.
And I have one friend, well, actually Greg Van used to work here and run the rest.
To come, but I don't think it's too early for you all to plan what you want to do while you're there. So you have a full day that's unscheduled. There's no meetings that IREX has organized on that Thursday. And also we're going to get up there the reason we leave early on that Sunday is to get up there by mid-afternoon. So let me strongly encourage you to think about what you might want to do while you're there, because what you don't want to do is get to the hotel and be like, now what? Almost every issue has an office in Washington. If you're interested in disability issues, there are more than a few offices in Washington, D.C. that advocate for people with disabilities. If you're concerned about women's empowerment, you'll find that there. So because it's the center of government power in the U.S., let me encourage you strongly to think about reaching out to an office. Moreover, there are going to be almost 700 other fellows up there too, and they're going to want to be making connections. And so I would encourage you to be the first to reach out to the agency to set up the appointment, because otherwise there are going to be many people looking for disability advocates in Washington, D.C., and they might be fully booked with other fellows from other institutes. So think about that. One of the things you can do easily if you don't know where to begin is simply go to Google Maps, put in Washington, D.C., and then from there put in your issue, put in empowering girls, and see what agencies come up. That could be a helpful way to find some agencies that are up there if you don't know some already.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you have a question? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think you already asked me.
Okay, yeah. But DC is great for fun stuff to do as well. And so like on that Sunday, think about what you might want to do if you want to see the White House, if you want to see the Lincoln Memorial, if you want to go to a certain museum. Some museums are open on Sunday, others are closed. So think about that as well. Yeah. Tom, are you ready for this group?
There we go.
Yep. Brian, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Good.
So some fellows, it looks like they may, since we're in a new classroom this morning, it might take them a minute to find, but the majority are here. So it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Tom Mueller, who teaches in communications. Typically, he is here on campus, and you would otherwise bump into him, but now he is up north in Wisconsin, right?
That's correct.
Wisconsin. Okay, Wisconsin. And he's coming to you live from there. So we bring you Professor Tom Mueller. Enjoy your time with him.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if the audio is good. Good audio? All right, good. Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me come to you today by teleconference. I will tell you, here is where I'm coming from. There's a community college here in Wisconsin. That's where I grew up. And I am a graduate of this community college. This is where I started my academic career. And I guess I'll be honest and tell you I came out of this university in 1977 and then went on to another four-year institution. But it's very nice that I'm able to come to you today. I want to thank you for letting me do this because I am a part-time caregiver for my mother. She's 92, and I come up here to help in the summer, so I like to connect with you and offer this information, but thank you for allowing me to do this by teleconference. I appreciate that. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this, the proximities of our country. Here's North Carolina. Here you are in the very northwest corner. Here's Virginia and Tennessee. Here's Boone, okay? Here is Wisconsin in my city, Wausau, right in the center. And I sometimes take pride in my driving, but this trip I went from here to here in 16 and a half hours driving time. So that might give you a little perspective of the country, and I'm up here and you're down here. So that's where I'm at, and glad to come to you today by a teleconference. So it's great. Thank you for that. And I want to thank, on this side, Bob Aspinwall is helping me with tech work. On your side, Daryl Laws is helping, and without them, I couldn't do this. So I want to thank the folks that helped set this up. And I have one guest on the line. He is my 9th grade school teacher, who is I still take walks with, and he very much enjoys this conference. So he's watching also, and I want to welcome him, Mr. Greg Venn, to the conference. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. I have a presentation, and I rehearsed this, and it will be roughly an hour. And I hope it will be valuable to you. And then we'll stop, and I'll be happy to have a discussion with you. I'd also like to make a disclaimer. I don't know how advanced you are or not advanced, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to try to start with some basics and build it step by step for you. Okay? So if you know a lot of this, please play along. I'm hoping that a lot of this will be pertinent from building from where you are today to where you need to go. Okay? So I'd suggest this: marketing and communication. That's my topic. You've got to define your brand. Your brand is everything. It's the foundation. And everything comes out of that brand, because without that brand, you don't have a consistent image or a consistent message. Okay? So many times if you look at the branding, people say, why? What's the purpose? Okay, why do I need that? Oh, by the way, let me stop. When we're done, this PowerPoint's going to be available in my blog. Okay, so you'll have this. So if you don't frantically write if you don't want to, you'll get all this. It's about recognition. Okay, who are you? What are you about? And sometimes we don't have much time to represent that to people. Who we are, what's our brand, that has to happen pretty quickly. And differentiation. I'm sure you've heard in the marketplace, unique selling proposition. Okay, what makes me different from others? Okay, and with the brand, we have to talk about awareness. Who knows about us, and who do we want to know about us? And I'm going to talk toward the end about some of the latest in lead generation and conversion. Okay, because I would suggest, help me out here, is it not about revenue? The most, all of you need revenue. You need more resources. I know in the past, speaking to Mandela Fellows, you're all passionate. You all have immediate needs, but many times it's about the money that you need to accomplish things. So I'd suggest, if you want to be motivated, think about that brand development will take you to the revenue generation part. Okay, so that to me is the end result for most. Okay, so when you build a brand, that helps you understand how you will promote your organization. And this is difficult. Many times people jump ahead, and I'll talk to you in a few seconds about how that happens. A lot of people, a lot of messages, social media. But if you don't know the brand and you can't communicate that brand identity to your stakeholders, employees, volunteers, etc., the message becomes fragmented, many times possibly negative. Okay, so the brand helps you promote your organization. It's one before the other. Okay, unique selling proposition. I thought about that earlier. The two big things in advertising, and I always go back to this, is unique selling proposition. What is it about you that matters? What makes you important to others? Why is your passion important to other people? Why should they support it? Okay, and with unique selling proposition, the other one is always call to action. What do you want people to do? Many, many times in our messaging, we miss the call to action. We don't ask people, I want you to respond to this. Click through to my landing page. So think of that always, and think of that now. What's your unique selling proposition? And then we'll get to call to action. Okay? So that's a great way to start. And then I already hit. Sometimes I apologize. I rehearse this so I talk ahead a little bit on the slides. This is just to sort of cue my memory of what I'm talking about. So remember USP and CTA, two big pieces of your branding. Many times people say, well, I don't know where to start. What do I do with my brand? But if you think of unique selling proposition and call to action, it's a way to help have that conversation start. Okay? Good. Think of this prototypically. Here's another helper on your brand. If your brand was a person, how would you describe that individual and their traits? Picture your organization or your brand as a person. Are they very stoic and serious? Are they very friendly and approaching? Are their arms crossed? Are they open? What does that person look like? How do they interact? Right? What's the face of that person, or faces? If you're inclusive, what are the different faces of that group? Right? But if you put a lot of times a brand into personal values, it helps you understand how you want other people to perceive. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. Okay? All right. So when you humanize the brand, think about all the pieces and parts, and these are sort of the menu of things you would want to think about in your org. Now, you might already have a logo. Maybe you've designed it, you like it, but a logo is very important. That carries that prototypical, branding that demonstrates who you are. The colors you use, maybe you thought that through before, maybe you haven't, but you can check on this. Different colors are subliminally, they subliminally affect people in different ways. So think about the colors you use. Are they hot colors? Are they cool colors? That's important, okay? And then the images you use, I'll give you an example of that. We'll look at some images that are tied to your brand, and then we'll talk a little bit more as I go on about video. Little short video segments are becoming very, very important in messaging and marketing. So what does that look like? Take it back to the brand, always back to the brand, okay? All right, thank you. Here's why it's so important, and I keep reiterating and selling this message to you. Why is it so important to build a brand? You've got to build leads that lead to conversion to sustain function. So, I mean, you find people, I would say, are they benefactors? Are they people who contribute grants? Are they people who give you in-kind services? I'm going to talk in a second about in-kind. Is it volunteer help that gives you labor to run your organization? Brand building brings you to the right people so you can convert them to the place you need to go. Okay, that's how, if I look at it now, and the more I'm studying lately, the biggest business is good about social media. There's a lot of content we need to do that. But I'll show you some tools later that are much more specific to lead generation and conversion. That seems to be the new model because people want to get to the business, okay? So think about that, okay? So here is also important. So you do all this work, and I know it's a process and it takes time. But when you have that brand image and the communication is consistent with that brand, you will develop trust. People will start trusting your organization. They will see it as legitimate. They will start becoming passionate about your passions. And with trust comes perceived value, right? In nonprofit fundraising, you might have heard we talk about the big ask. You want someone to give $10,000, $25,000 for your cause. You've got to get to the trust and value part before you go for the big ask. Okay, so this is all the development of where you get to the place you get that big lead. It's the corporate HR person who has seen you, has seen that, believes in you. Then you get to the point where you can ask for those kind of funds. Okay, so this is the process of the brand building. Okay. Employees and volunteers, it's important for that. They need to see a really clean professional image. Enthusiastic donors, people that want to come, you might have heard of push and pull marketing. Push marketing is we blast messages out at everybody and hope something happens. Pull messaging is when people opt into us. They want to become part of what we do. They follow us on the social media. They engage with comments. Those become enthusiastic donors. You're no longer begging for money, pleading for money. People have engaged your brand, so they become more enthusiastic about giving to you. Okay? So these are all reasons why brand building is important. Okay? And then I mentioned earlier in-kind partnerships, and I'm going to give you examples. Many times you want money, but you need other things than money. And I'm going to show you some things coming up that require subscription fees. Well, maybe a benefactor will help you pay for a subscription fee for a tool you need to do more business. Or in-kind partner may give you some simple video equipment so you can make these Instagram videos we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, they'll give you product, they'll give you services, they might help you with labor, they might contribute workers. So never disallow the fact in-kind partnerships are very valuable. You just have to think about when you need them and how to ask for that. Okay, so branding again brings you closer to in-kind partnerships. Okay, and one last thing about good branding is grant applications. I don't know how many of you are pursuing grants, but believe me, if you're getting down and you're a finalist for a grant application, they are going to look at you. They will go out, they will check your social media, they're going to look at your imaging, they're going to look at your branding, they're going to look at your content threads, because they want to know who you are if you are being considered for a large grant. If your branding's in place, your messaging's consistent, that will help you in the consideration of who gets the grant. And we all know grants are competitive, really competitive. So these are more reasons to get the branding in place and make it look good. All right? More reasons. Okay. There's a problem, and I'm going to tell you about that. You probably know this. You might do your best job, get the branding where you want it to be, consistent communication, but it's hard because you want to affect your stakeholders and make sure they get that good message. In a social media context, it can be difficult. It's the haters, people who jump on a post of yours and post negative things, people that say things that aren't true. So I'm being honest here. We want to build a brand and control a brand. Pre-internet, that was really easy to do. It really was. There were so few channels of communication. You knew where you could advertise, and it was easy to control your message and brand. Now with social media, that can get a bit clouded depending on who's posting where and doing what. Okay. So I'd suggest, and I'll make some comments here, with your brand, make sure you're affecting in the best way the people you can control. And I will show you and give you an example of a way I think you can do that. Okay? How does it translate across platforms? Remember, in social media, platforms are templates. They're given to you as different things, right? That you don't control a lot of times how social media platforms lay out. You have to fit into their template. Okay? How does it transition? How does it work? Well, let's look at UNICEF. I have no tie to UNICEF. I just pulled this up as an example. Okay? So here is UNICEF, and I'm looking at this. I believe this is their Facebook page. So we see the logo. It's a light sans serif type, white reversed out in a sky blue with their small UNICEF logo set in. Right or wrong, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that is their brand. That's what they want to look like. But look what was more important here. Two other big factors. Their tagline. For every child, comma, every right. And if you've noticed, they've reversed right out, the word right. They've reversed it. That's a little bit of emphasis in their design. And then look at the image. Now, what's happened here when they're allowed to play, you get to put one primary image in on your Facebook page, your business or community page. They chose this image, and of course, you've got to be in the right dimensions. You have to be certain dimensionally. This is a horizontal. But they went ahead and put that tagline embedded in the image. So when the image loaded, the tagline was in it. Does that make sense? So if you choose to have a tagline or a positioning statement, build that into the image that you want to load into your social media. Okay? When you look at UNICEF now as an individual, remember prototypically, what is that person? What's UNICEF? What do you see in the faces of these children? Okay? How are things going there? How do you feel about that organization? That is an effort to build a certain brand perception. Okay, so think about your image. What do you want to place? Now, if you look down here, they're at 7.6 million people following. So huge following, and this is how it looks here. Now, how about this? This is, I believe, let me get my glasses back on. I believe this is Twitter. So how are we doing here? Look what Twitter allows. Do you see the consistency? The picture is cropped differently because you're given different dimensions on Twitter. You don't get the same space. But look how they cropped it. They kept the same image, but based on this, they went in closer. Can you see that? Look how it's cropped here. And now look at how they do it here. Same type brand message. They've just used the same image in a little different cropping. Still embedded their tagline, right? So do you see here how this is, holding up as consistent? Okay, and they have 7.6 million followers here also. Okay, so how about those two? I'd suggest the brand image is fairly consistent with what you're given. Okay, remember here, by the way, logo and circle, logo and circle. Look what happens here. What happened with LinkedIn? All of a sudden, not your choice, I believe. You're forced, the logo goes in a square. That's important, but you might not control that. Is your logo in a round? Is your logo in a square? These are all considerations. On social, you may not get that choice. Here, same logo, but in a square box. Why didn't they keep the same picture? Why? I don't know. I'm not saying that's wrong. I would say this. LinkedIn is going to be mostly for more your business to business community, while the other two platforms are business to consumer communities. Doesn't make it wrong, but this is a little bit different message. And if you noticed, the tagline is gone out of the image. That's their choice. They could have embedded it, but didn't. But underneath, they have UNICEF saves children's lives, defends their rights, and helps them fulfill their potential. All right? Up here, we have for every child, every right. I would have kept it consistent. I would have kept the same image cropped really tight. That's a choice. But does that make sense to you? Just understanding as your image and brand goes across different platforms, how do you want it to look and how consistent will it be? Okay, so again, this is their LinkedIn page, and I'm trying to see here what their following is on this. I think 1.2 million followers on LinkedIn. So they're still huge, and that's really, really big for LinkedIn, which is more business related. So again, here we go, imaging here in branding, imaging here in branding, imaging here in branding. Okay, that's your challenge. As you go through your brand and your organization, think of these settings and start with that. Think about how are we going to look across the platforms, okay? And then here is Instagram, takes you to a whole different place. We're back to a circle logo, that's okay. 3.7 million followers here, but see, with UNICEF, with Instagram, you get a small, real limited amount of information you can put in what they call a bio, and that's in here. But look, it's much more open. There isn't the predominant image, and of course, then down here you start exhibiting the images you have posted. Okay, so sometimes you will not have all the control. If you've noticed, again, I'm backing up, these other ones are fairly similar in layout, but when you get to Instagram, it's a little bit different. The one thing that's been kept consistent is the logo, right? Even though it's in a square here, in these other ones, the logo is allowed to be in a circle. So continuity there, okay? Once again, here, I don't know about that tagline. That isn't clear when you look at their, basically the page where they show their brand. So these are just things you can think about. Tagline, primary image, and logo. Okay? Here's another quick point. Leaders and lead volunteers are seen as a sub-brand of the organization. I'm not advocating here for any of you to try to control the social media of people you work with or work for you. I wouldn't say that. But just beware that if the predominant leaders represent themselves in a certain way, that will bleed over into the brand perception. Bad or good, I don't know, but it could be detrimental, might be good. Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon, one of the richest men in the world. Look at his Instagram. What does he choose to use? picture of himself as a young kid, maybe 14 years old. Is that bad? I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying here's how a very, very powerful industrial man in the US represents himself with a picture of him as a kid. How do you want to represent yourselves? Again, you might want to have that discussion, and I'm going to talk with you in a second about how you might want to talk to others in your organization about social media, but just be aware of that, and I think it's a conversation you should have about how leaders present their social media. Okay, just so that's aware, because again, we talked about how the brand is, how you control your brand message, issues with leadership, maybe with a different type of message can affect. Okay, so you've developed your brand identity. Sounds simple, right? But we just talked through the basics of building that brand out. Maybe you have it. If you haven't, test your branding against these stages. Is it okay? If you haven't done this, start now. Okay, then you can start building the social content through your brand personality. Once you have the other part in place, you start with content. Here's something I'd suggest to you. I don't know if you use Hootsuite. It is called a social media dashboard. Okay, it's a place where you run everything if you're doing your social media. The content, when it goes out, what time it goes out, what platform it goes on to. All your analytics are in one place showing you who's looking at your stuff, what you're doing, okay? Just think of this, and I'll give you an example of something right now in a second that's free that you could do with Hootsuite, okay? I just a week or two ago talked to a social media manager in Sydney, Australia. One of her clients wants one tweet every 25 minutes. One Twitter tweet every 25 minutes, nonstop. Okay? How in the world does she do that? Well, you know what she does? She sits down with a 1 or 2 hour block of time on a given day and crafts 50, 60. She crafts all kinds of tweets, loads them into Hootsuite, tells Hootsuite the distribution times. See, to see the point here, you don't have time to mess around with social media. That's half the problem with our business model, is we spend too much time on social media. Hootsuite is a tool where you can manage it when you have time, and then it automates it out for you. Okay, so Hootsuite's a good product, and we'll get to that in a second. Here again, there's some costs. If this is US, but $29 a month US to use the professional model, and I believe that's good enough. 10 social profiles, you could be running 10 different social media accounts, but with one user. You might have one person allocated in your organization to use this and do the social media. Here is one example of in-kind. If you don't have the money, you maybe don't want to spend $30 a month, find a partner or a benefactor. You can go to them and say, look, help us to help ourselves. We want you to help. All we want to ask you to do is fund our Hootsuite so that we can do better social media marketing. So find a partner to fund it for you. These are in-kind asks, right? You're showing people what you're doing with the money. And sometimes people say, this makes sense. I can see where the money's going. So why not ask somebody to fund your Hootsuite for the next 3 years as one contribution? Okay, just an idea, because again, there's some cost to running Hootsuite, but this link will be in your presentation. There's a really great free social marketing training course. Matter of fact, I'm using it in a fall class. I'm teaching social media strategies in the fall. I'm going to use this. It's a great little intro, okay? And again, this link will be back in the PowerPoint I give you. You can click in. But here's what you do. You sign up free. You go in. It's simple. There's little 5-minute videos and then little 3 or 5 question quizzes. If you get a wrong answer, it takes you back and you get the right answer. It's real basic, but here's the 6 parts of that training. Overview of the social platforms. What are they? Optimize profiles. I'm not talking about that a lot this session, but how do you make the best social media profile? Strategies. Just we're talking about brand strategies. It's got a little section on that. Building advocate communities. That's what you want. You want communities of people that share like-minded passions. So it teaches that. Leveraging content. That's what we leverage our content to get results. And then intro to paid. I'll talk just a little bit about paid social. Easy little steps, 6 parts, not hard to do, and it's free. And by the end, when you finish, a little a certification pops up on the screen that you have finished this little Hootsuite social training. Okay, here's what I'd suggest. It's free. You could require it for employees. If employees are going to be doing anything with your social media, require them to take this course. You could even use this course and host sessions for volunteers. I don't know what your volunteer base looks like, or you could tell volunteers, if you're going to be part of us in social media, we want you to take the Hootsuite course. Real simple. If you finish it, just take a screenshot of the certification and send me the screenshot that you took it. That's what I do with my students. Okay, so it's a tool, it's free, great intro, and I would suggest there's something you can use to build that part of your business. Okay? Okay, where do we start with the content? So we've got the brand thing going, right? We've worked on our brand. We've looked a little bit at introductory training for social media. Now, where do we go? What do we do with our content? Okay. Develop themes that are advantageous to your development. So think about themes of writing. I think too often in social, we've become reactive. Here's a picture of my meal today. Here I am on a bridge. Look at me with my sister. I'm riding a bicycle. That social media has become reactive, but think strategically as a business. What are some themes you want to write about? What are some themes? Okay. And I'm going to talk in a minute about a 30-day plan. I always suggest maybe you want to build a 30-day media plan. Maybe that's 4 themes. That'd be 1 a week. Okay, themes. Maybe it's, better reading skills for children in grade school. How do we best engage inclusiveness in our organization? Just think of themes, and when you have a theme that's good for you and you're passionate about it, then you can build social media against that. Okay, start with the themes. Okay, think of people in your niche. Who are you writing to? In advertising, we talk about who's the target audience. Okay, who do you want to read this? Is it a top executive that makes decisions in HR with budgeting? Is it a volunteer? Maybe one theme is effective for one certain target audience. It's not going to be the same. If you're, we talk a lot and I'll talk in a second, influencers. You're always trying to reach social influencers. That's one type of theme versus someone who might want to be a first-time volunteer. Okay, so just think about that when you think about your themes. And here's where I'm going to get, this is something I've been working on a lot. Think more about other than yourself. There's so much power in reflecting and writing about powerful people. Who do you emulate? Who do you admire? Research them and find out what are they doing? What are they passionate about? Okay, how might that work? So if you reflect on others and then bring that back to your own theme, you'll get more traffic. Okay, here's a book I'm using. You can buy this used. I mean, it's a simple little book. I use this in my class, and I mention here, who is that other you're going to write about? That's an influencer. This book, Social Selling by Hughes and Reynolds, I don't know how it works for you internationally, but you can buy this on eBay used. You can buy digital versions online. It's a real simple read, but Hughes is really big on leveraging influencers. Okay, I'm teaching a summer class right now, selling through social media, and we use this text. Fast read, simple read. It's not academic, but it shows you what the power of an influencer is to your business. Okay, so that's just a suggestion. Okay, and I'm going to try to click out. If you went to my block for this lecture, I gave you 2 links there. And I try to blog about these type of things on LinkedIn. It seems to me LinkedIn is a good place where I write about these things. And if you look at this, I wrote a piece, and that link is available to you, about convincing influencers you're worth the connection. Okay. So if you find somebody, I don't know, let's say it's some internationally recognized individual, You can't just start in social media plugging in their username and handle. That's not the best way to do it. It's to read about them and think about, what do you know about them? What's important, okay? And let me see if I can go up here and find this. I think this is, I'm trying to actually toggle to that actual one. This is the one I wrote right here, and I've just toggled into it. But if you want to read down into this I wrote about one of my communication courses. But if you go down here, I give you the steps to reaching out and finding and connecting with influencers. Okay? Most of the time, it's about some simple research that tells you about what they're up to. A lot of times, if you use Google search, click the news tab. Search for them in the news. Search for their company in the news. And you will find information about these individuals that will help you reflect on them when you write. Okay? Takes a little work and it might seem a little roundabout, but that will allow you to bring them into your conversation. Okay? That's affecting an influencer. Okay. Right? Here's one other thing. If you noticed, this is sort of a weird pic, isn't it? It's a rights-free image. Many times, if you have your own images that you took or someone at your organization allows you to have, that's fine. But of course, we know in good social media, we can't use images we don't have the rights to. Okay? Here's a site I'd suggest, Pixabay, if you're ever interested. Pixabay has thousands of free images. So if I'm going to do a blog post and I want to write about this, I really don't have an image that I have a rights to. So I go back here, that's a Pixabay image, and I gave them credit. Sort of a weird little picture, but it's attention getting. So Pixabay, that's a place you can get free images if you want them. Rights free, which means no one's going to say, hey, that's my picture, you shouldn't have used it. So I go there quite a bit, okay? And then I wrote another story, and I've termed this social flattery. And I don't necessarily think social flattery is a bad thing. But when we write about influencers and demonstrate we're interested in what they do, I think that's a good thing. So you can use social flattery to bring, and if an influencer likes you and likes what you're writing, they'll start following you, or they may even do social media and call out your organization to others. Okay, so let me click into this. I think I can find it. Here is that actual story. And I actually wrote this thinking about the Mandela Fellows. I was thinking about you and what you do. And so I tried to give an example in this about how I did it. And again, this is just at random. I really didn't have a potential reason, but I found this, the Against Malaria Foundation. And I put a hot link in my article. Just found it. I thought interesting. Basically, this organization claims 100% back to the cause, and it's about mosquito netting. To get mosquito netting to the right places. Okay? I read into that. I found out, well, here's the one of the main players behind that is Peter Sherratt, executive chairman of it, original founder in 2004. He's a legal barrister, legal person, highly successful. Okay? I look further. What's his passion? Long distance swimming. He swam from England to France in 12 hours. I'm getting down into the person. I'm trying to understand the passion behind the person. Okay? So that I'm thinking, well, here's Peter. He runs this huge organization. Maybe I'm just thinking, would you like to mentor with somebody like Peter? Would Peter be someone you'd like to connect with and maybe discuss running nonprofits? It's just an example. But after that, I went down and found, you want to read more about Peter and how he loves his swimming? Here's a hot link to his personal blog about his swimming endeavors. So here's the point in this whole story. If you're able to go in and find individuals that you're interested in and take that extra 15, 20 minutes and go a couple layers deeper, you can find the passions of people. And that might be part of your theming. If you're passionate about something, you would say, for example, Our organization is well aligned with the passions of Peter Sherratt, the long distance swimmer, who, by the way, started the Against Malaria Foundation. So you weave these individuals into your writing. And when you're in social media, you use their user IDs, right? They have at their name or whatever their official name is. And then you will traffic into their social media flow. When you use your name, you're going to get in front of people that follow that influencer. This is all part of connecting and affiliating your brand with influencers. Okay? So these are just ideas of when you think of themes, how do you go about reaching out to the other, going a little further and bringing people into what you're writing about. Never lose sight of your own brand. Never lose sight of the fact you're there to build your brand and build your revenues. But bringing in this type of thinking, this type of writing puts you in front of completely different audiences and bigger audiences. Okay? All right. So I call this feature length social content. Feature length maybe 500-700 words. Like my blogs, they're not long. Why? No one reads long anymore. No one does. But if it's well written and concise, you can make a point. So think about writing and social content. I think when you write this 1 week theme plan, it should be anchored by a blog post. That's where you really explain your ideas behind the theme. It could also be the place you link into an influencer. Okay? Then after you get your LinkedIn, or your LinkedIn's fine. You post it there, then share the same blog post, copy and paste. That should go to your organizational website. I don't know where you're all at with your websites, what you have. Most of the platforms we use, like Wix or other, have a blog feature. Just turn it on. If you don't use it now, turn it on in your website. Make sure you're featuring this. You don't have to rewrite anything. The blog can go on LinkedIn. Then the same blog post goes on your company website. Then it can go on your Facebook company community page. Does this make sense? You share it. Now, if you're using Hootsuite, I believe you can load this to do it for you. But you can. Sometimes I do it manually. I just copy and paste across different blog platforms. But share it everywhere. And then use your social platforms to tell people about it. On Instagram, a picture. I just wrote about the most important reason we have to educate children. See our blog post. Twitter, tweets. Tell people and direct them to the link where the blog post is. So my point is here, when you think of that weekly theme, start with a blog post, but then leverage that and cross-promote it across all the other social platforms. The 1 week plan can be just that. Is it posted here? Then it's posted here. How many times do you want to tweet about it that week? Do you want to do some 5 different Instagram posts about it that week? Supporting the blog content seems to be a good way to go. And if you do that 4 times, that would be a 30-day plan for your organization. This is not, it just takes time. It takes diligence and planning, but this would be how to be competitive in a social context. Okay? I will tell you about one option. I use it a lot. I don't know if it's the best. If you post on Instagram, and you may know this, you can click and opt in to Facebook and Twitter. So when I go out on Instagram, it automatically goes on my Facebook page. It automatically tweets. That's not really the best way to do it. You can imagine what I write on Instagram, that isn't a good tweet. That tweet should really be crafted differently, specific to Twitter. There's different ways of writing, okay? But for automation purposes, this is a fast way to get information out. So even if you were doing this, if you were calling out one of your blog posts, you might want to say on an Instagram post, here's what's new, here's our new blog post, and then that would automatically go to Facebook and Twitter. That option exists. You may be using it. If not, you can see that in the post part of Instagram. Okay, there is auto post there, okay? I said this earlier, target the individual you're writing about. Always use their ad handle, like if they're on Instagram, or if they have a username on Instagram, or they have an @ name that might be used in Twitter. Always use that, because if you use the influencer's identity name, that's what makes it traffic into their audience. Okay? The same with hashtags. You may know about that. Okay? Hashtags are big search engine opportunities. Okay? And what's relevant? Well, here's just one. If you look at top-hashtag.com, you can run any word or theme you want. It will give you the top hashtags. Okay? For instance, the top hashtag when I pulled this was hashtag love. Love has 1.22 billion posts on social. So if you write, there's nothing more important than the love hashtag of children, you've trafficked into the biggest hashtag, right? So you can think about different themes, different words. Using them credibly will bring you more traffic because people are looking for those search terms. So again, influencer user identities and hashtags are very important when you embed into your social. Okay. All right. There's also a function with Instagram. It's called quiz stickers. Here's my point here. Always leave your readers with a question. Remember call to action? We want them to do something. Ask a question in your blogs. What was your biggest experience with your passion in this area? Or like I said here with Instagram, there's a quiz function. You might ask them, of these three choices, which makes you most passionate about children's education? Do you see my point here? It's the response mechanism. So if you ask questions in your social posts or you run a quiz function, there's a higher chance. And once you get people to respond, you've got that higher engagement. You want people to respond. Okay? I've been guilty of that too many times. I don't have a good call to action. It's common. But think about that and always give people a reason to respond. Okay? All right. What else can we do to tell our stories? Instagram TV. Have you heard of this? You know, Instagram video is very, very hot right now. A lot of people, a lot of traffic, a lot of people are looking at it. It's sort of Instagram's version of YouTube. So YouTube can be part of it too. Okay? But people are going short, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But how do you tell that visual and audio story that complements your other social media? I suggest we consider that. I'm learning to do it myself. I never stop trying to teach myself or learn from others. Okay? So remember this, here's a challenge. Most all video is in a horizontal form, right? Instagram is only vertical. Instagram doesn't flip to horizontal. So I've seen things already where I've seen, well, the video's cut and I'm only seeing the center third and I don't know what's going on. So you've got to start thinking about what things look like visually vertical. It's just a challenge, but that's part of the Instagram model. Okay? So we think about it. Now, I'm learning and I'm very thankful. This last year, my department, I usually don't ask for much from technical or, equipment. They bought me a GoPro Hero 7 Black, which is the newest GoPro. It's a tiny little camera. You may have heard of these. It's used a lot in action photography. It's a couple inches big. It's very tiny. Pretty darn good video and audio. Okay? I'm using this to learn how to do my video, and then I'm also using what they call a gimbal stick. You might have heard of these. By the way, this is, again, back to getting an in-kind sponsor. Maybe someone would sponsor you on this equipment. I think in US, the Hero 7 Black's about $350 or $300. The gimbal stick's about $75. The gimbal stick, you can see where you mount the GoPro, and however you move it like this, it's always stable. So let's say you're walking along next to somebody interviewing them. There's a teacher walking with 10 children, and you're interviewing them walking. The gimbal stick keeps it real steady. You don't get this jumpy look, right? It's a quick way to make yourself look professional. So all I'm suggesting here is as I learn, I'm trying to take my little Hero 7 Black and my gimbal stick and start to do these videos so I can have better video content. Okay? So maybe find an in-kind sponsor to help with that. But that's really an important component of it. Okay? We talked about this. Think about that 1-month plan. I've showed you a lot of steps, a lot's going on here, but boil it down, take it a step at a time, just like I showed you, and then think about what does that 1 month plan look like. I'd say week by week, honestly. It's easier that way, that topical theme. What are the images? What videos will support it? What context are you writing about? And what is the timeline? Monday, Wednesday, Friday? You can look, there's certain times a day where there's the highest Instagram readership. You can look that up, not hard. So you might think, okay, let's post here and here. And when are you going to be on Facebook posting? When do your tweets go out? Okay, that's the package. And then if you do a month, you can imagine as you get into the third week, it's time to get ready and launch that next month. So it takes work, but this would be, I would suggest, the most purposeful way to build a brand and then execute the messaging. Okay, so think about that. Okay, push marketing, we talked about this. You mass distribute messages, you wait and hope for an audience, right? We want to get people to write back. I want to bring you one last thing before I conclude. Let me take you into one last section. You may consider more lead generation. I've been learning about this, and again, I'm really impressed with it. I think it's important to take a look at lead generation, okay? This is paid. I'm not suggesting this, but you can go on LinkedIn, and it'll walk you through, and it'll help you create an ad, and it'll give you all kinds of parameters, the type of person, okay? It will get you, you know how it is, the LinkedIn stream comes and your messaging or ad will pop up and it will get you in front of X number of people. After that, I don't know what happens. You pay a certain cost for every one of the distributions and they'll tell you, we just got you in front of 10,000 people per your ad where you wanted to go, and I can't tell you what the response will be, okay? I've tried it. I never got a high response. But Facebook will tell you, and by the way, what usually happens is you bid, you'll set a cost like 80 cents a view or something, and then you can cap it for the month. I only want to spend $80. But usually what happened with me and Facebook, they say, okay, your $100 was spent, your message has been sent out. I didn't get any ROI, return on investment. I did not get much coming back, okay? That's paid if you want to go to paid. Some people use it. LinkedIn would love you to spend some money with them. I don't know. Let me show you one other option, a little more deliberate. Okay? Consider marketing automation. Marketing automation is where most companies are going now, especially with business to business. You are business to business when you're looking for contributors, when you're looking for donors, people who give money, corporations or grant givers. That's business to business. Okay? There's several lead generator tools. I don't want to promote one over the other, but I have some experience with one. So again, I'm saying it again, consider in kind. Does someone partner with you and help you at some of these lead generator firms, or will a benefactor pay for the use of these? Okay, because it could be a big piece of your future business. Okay, this one's called SharpSpring. The only reason I know, I come from University of Florida. That's where I got my PhD. I know students who have worked at SharpSpring. They were really impressive. When they came out of there, they talk a completely different language. They think in a completely different way because they've been using the SharpSpring tool for clients. Okay, so remember that, SharpSpring. Now, there's a whole system to it. They'll teach you how to use it, but it's everything in one. Okay, they call it affordable. I'm going to show you the price. You can tell me what you think. But here's the deal. They have massive, massive databases. I know they're operating in Africa because I did a little bit of research to see it is in Africa. It gives you the leads per month, and then it shows you how to move to convert those leads to sales. So leads to conversions to sales. So if you're working the system, and what if you got 12 new major givers a month? What would that do for your organization? Okay, it's very strategic. Okay, this is some of it from SharpSpring, how it works. I know someone, I graduated from journalism school 30, 40 years ago. Here's what she does full time. She writes behavior-based emails. The language is absolutely psychologically constructed to get people to take action. Okay, so SharpSpring can help you because you want to be emailing back to the people in your lead set. Okay, it will help you with the blogs. Remember we talked about blogs? Strategic language in your blog writing. Forms. Forms are those blanks where you want people to respond back, right? Give us your name. It strategically helps you build those forms to get the highest conversion. Okay, SharpSpring Social. It helps you with your social media. So everything I've been trying to tell you today, these type of systems will help with. Landing pages. You may have heard of those. No more websites. You want to take people to an absolute place where they make a decision. So a landing page would be about where do they click to give you money. Okay, it will help you design landing pages. That's where you drive people for the conversions. Okay, customer relation management is if you've got 5,000 names you're working with, it helps you manage the leads inside those 5,000. Okay, this is one big system of marketing automation to get the results. Okay, not cheap. Okay, I realize this is where you would need a partner. But if you look at this, it's about the number of leads. If you want 1,500 contacts a month, $450 US. 10,000 contacts a month, $650. So really what you're paying for is how many leads you get a month. Unlimited users, unlimited support, full set of features. So let's say you started with 1,500. You want to work on 1,500 people qualified for you as potential givers. Then the system takes you through all 1,500. How many can you convert of that? 3%, 5%, that's sort of the number. So take 3 or 5% of 1,500. If you can convert those to givers, that would be an advantage. You'll probably need a partner. Again, I'm not saying it's cheap. That's the type of service that's out there if you could find a partner to use it. Marketing automation. Okay. SharpSpring and others, I found this, they give back. They do charitable work. I notice here they give back to the Florida community. They give to different charities. Now, I'm not suggesting all of you run after SharpSpring and try to get funding. But my point is these marketing automation companies do have charitable giving actions. So there might be a partnership with other ones. I'm just saying these are opportunities to find partners that you could get to use this system. Okay, this is a company I found in South Africa, and I noticed they're partners with SharpSpring. My point here is they're telling you a lot about the same process and information, but I wanted you to know, I wanted to make sure it does work in Africa. So if this made sense, you'd have to be sure that the leads it's giving you are very good and specific for you. Okay, so that's marketing automation. Okay, it's a tough marketplace. I know that it's tough, but yet there's these new opportunities. There's new tools. There's ways to do it smart. There's ways to be strategic. There's ways to make sure your brand is correct. Okay, so you can be competitive, but it's tough. It's just getting to the right tools. So I hope today, you know, in a little of this, here's my challenge to you. Build your most exceptional brand, then make sure you tell the right people about it. That's pretty simple. Build an exceptional brand, tell the right people about it. Okay, that's what I hope would be a great opportunity for you in your business. Okay, so that's it. That's me. There's my email. It's on the, you know, the slide deck. There's my social. I think that'll work if you hit the hot links in the slide deck. I've left all that for you. Good. I'm right at an hour. I said I would be right at an hour. And I would love to talk to you about questions. I know that's a lot, but I wanted to give you as much as I could in 1 hour so that you'd be able to think about what your next steps are. Okay? So can I help you in any way? Questions or comments?
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
My name is Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Maggie from Zambia.
Yes.
I wanted you to clarify on the point you indicated to brand a person. So
Yes.
how can that be done?
I don't think all that is, it's a tool to help you think. Because sometimes people think about, well, my organization, who am I? What am I? Sometimes people have a hard time thinking about how they would brand. It's called brand persona, sort of personalizing a brand. The idea of it being a person is just thinking in your mind of how that your company, your organ, nonprofit, how would that look to others if it were a person? It's just a thinking process tool. Not that your brand becomes a person, it's the attributes of your brand. Does that make sense? Okay, just the way I think it through. Must be very early. Others? I'm always available on email. If you get into this process and you want help, I'll help you. So if you're back and you're working and you're building through the brand process, send me an email. I'd be glad to respond or make comments or talk with you. Be glad to do that with you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Frio from Mozambique.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes, when we talked about consistency on the social media platforms, is it okay to keep same images on all of the platforms like Facebook, Twitter? So we keep the same images, or we can have different images, but the information being the same?
Yes, I think what we looked at really is the static images, like on your profile page of Insta. What's your profile on Instagram? What's your profile on Facebook? Remember those big predominant images on top? I would suggest those are consistent as possible. You may want to change them over time. Maybe every quarter you want to change that image, but I would change them all at that point. Does that make sense? Now, daily, if you're just doing posts, those can be all kinds of different images. But what I'm talking about are those static images that are part of your profile. Does that make sense? Keep those consistent. I even said, like with UNICEF, I really didn't like it on LinkedIn how they went to a different message and lost the tagline. I would try to keep that the same. Change it all at the same time if you want to change it. But that the rest of it, do what you want, the images, all kinds of things all the time. Okay?
Morning. You're speaking
morning.
to Lungile from South Africa.
Yes.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on personal branding, or maybe did we discuss it and I missed it? Okay.
No, last year I did more on personal branding. This time is more about your organizational branding. I think it's about, for me, I try to think about, again, themes. And I write within my own themes. I like fitness. Okay, I'm getting older, but I like bicycling. I like running. So I like to advocate for healthy lifestyle. My other piece is I'm an educator. I like to talk about, I study a lot the psychology of why people do things. Okay, psychological predictors of things. So I write academically. But I try to find those, even in my own life, like I said, for your media plan, what are the 2 or 3 themes in your life you really want to write about? And you know what? I don't go heavy into politics. I don't go heavy into religion. Those are choices that can be more controversial. I try to write about healthy lifestyle for people who are aging and about academic research. Does that make sense? So think about those big themes and then, stay inside those parameters.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Saruni from Kenya. I was wondering if we will have all this information as you learn as it is.
Yes, I think if you look right now on our As You Learn page for my block, I think it's called Marketing and Communication. I put it right at the top. There's a PDF version of this presentation. Now, what I'd like to do, I want someone to check and tell me that the links work in it. Okay, because remember, there's different links to articles and things. I think they will, but there's a PDF version of this at the top of my block in the As You Learn. Okay.
Thank you,
And
sir.
also those 2 articles I mentioned are also there.
All right.
From Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Uno from Zimbabwe, and I wanted to ask of your ideas on call to action. I know you talked a lot about it, but how do you become very specific about it without also, looking like you're overselling, but at the same time, you want to get the results?
That is a great point. You want to always be authentic, right? And that's the trouble with, we can all look at social media and see who the scammers are, right? They're asking a million questions, and we're not that. But I think authentically, if we're writing inside a theme, what's a really thoughtful way to conclude? Like if you're talking about educating young children, you might conclude with, was there a time in your life you saw a child that really needed help? What did you do to benefit that individual in their education? Just leave something where people could reflect back. I think people love to share, and you'll see threads like that. There was one I just used in a class. Someone wrote in LinkedIn about how they marketed their barbershop. And after it, they asked them just a question about, are you in the barber or hairstyle business? What do you do with LinkedIn to market your product or service? And there were 54 responses. And I had my students go in there and look at what people wrote. But I think if you're authentic and you just want people to share, even sometimes asking, maybe you would like some help. Maybe you aren't completely sure how to get something done. You'd say, I really want to do better at this. Does anybody have any suggestions for how our organization could learn to do that better? That's authentic. You just want people to help. And many times I think if you're authentic and ask people for help, they're going to help you. And all of a sudden, if you've got 20, 30, 40 people in there that are offering things, that's the start of relationships. Does that make sense? Hope so.
Sorry, another question. So besides tagging and hashtags, are there other strategies to grow or increase your following?
One of the other ways would be, and like I said, I don't write in really, I'm not a really mainstream movie star, so I don't have 1.2 million followers, but I think you can always have your friends reach out to other friends. That's organic growth. So if your organization has 100 people, the old simple way is just, hey, share this out to your friends, share this out to others. You can ask those in your organization to do that. As a matter, let's say you do the Hootsuite training, that little 6-part training session, and say as part of that, look, when you're a volunteer with us, automatically what we'd like you to do, if you see something come out from us, share that across your social. Okay, that would be organic. But if you've got 50, 100, 200 people sharing, you can see how that amplifies. So that is really building outward. The other way I'm trying to say is draw people, the hashtag and using the usernames, that's trying to draw bigger traffic from other places. Okay, does that make sense? So think organic.
Hello.
Hello.
You asked to check the links. They work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, because I converted it to PDF. That's just an easier way to share it, and so then you have it all, and it's easier to use, and it's a smaller file, and the links work. So I think I put Pixabay in there and some other things you might want to click through and try if you're interested in that. Oh, and follow me on social media and I'll follow you back. See, I'm at to give my own advice here. So find me and follow me, and I always enjoy seeing what you're doing. And I've been following Mandela Fellows for 3 or 4 years now. It's always fun, so I enjoy that. So please do.
Last question.
Please, ask anything you like. That's fine.
Yes. What would be the books that you would advise us to read? Can you send like 2 or 3 book titles for us?
Yeah, I will. By the way, one thing, mention of that, I tell my students, sometimes students, the big heavy academic research is okay, but I like reading articles from certain magazines. One I like is Forbes. So if you even do searches for Forbes magazine and social media, Forbes magazine and influencers, I think Forbes does a nice job. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Financial Times, searches in those type of major publications are great places to just read on a regular basis. But that I gave you one book there, the book by Hughes and Reynolds. That's a good read. There's another one we're using by Hoffeld. That's called The Psychology of Selling. That's more about how do people think psychologically that they make buying decisions. So I could share Hoffeld with you also. I'll put that in the block for this lecture so that you have some, and I'll think about if there's another also. Do you all use Amazon, eBay? Yes, no? It's possible. It's possible because I can give you links right in Amazon or eBay for some of these books are used. I always tell students buy these books used. So if you have eBay, you can buy them cheap. That's what I would do.
Can we please see your email again?
Sure.
Yeah.
There it is. And it's, yeah, no problem. Mueller TS. Little hard to see there because it was actually a hot link when I put it in there, but
I have a question.
sure, please.
My name is Danielle. Thank you for the presentation. I would like
Thank
to
you.
know how can an organization do to build its brand in the local environment, national environment, and international environment?
That's a really, this is a good point. In thinking, this goes back to the target audience. Remember I said, who's the niche? Who do you want to affect? Like, is local about volunteers? Then you might want, branding should always be consistent, right? The brand is the brand, but the messaging, if you got a 1-week theme, might be local, all about local. Where do your benefactors come from? Are you trying to find money internationally? Well, then you might be reaching out to somebody, at a big corporation elsewhere. That would be, so the brand should always be who you are. That should not change. You're never ashamed of who you are as an org, but the messaging and those themes would carry across to different places. Does that make sense? And that's a great way to think about it. Even if you're theming, this is a local theme for this week. This is a national, this is an international, but it's really about the target. Who do you want? And that's in the content, right? And influencers, remember you bring in the influencers. If you're going to go local, leverage local influencers into your content. International, bring in somebody from Great Britain into the content. That's sort of how I would have to approach it.
Must I press?
I can't hear you right now for some reason.
Aunt?
There you go. Thank you.
Sorry. Technology is not my. Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. Most of us want to find out when will you be back in App State? Will you be coming back before we leave?
Yeah, I don't know. When do you leave? I come back like August 10 because I'm staying here to help my mother. So
we'll be
you might be
gone.
I know. It's really problematic, but my mother's 92 and she's quite old. So I've devoted my summers to helping, but I am sorry I miss being with you. It's actually troubles me. But yeah, I'll be back about the 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
I am
I can hear you.
from Cameroon.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm missing the message.
Please make sure you're pressing and holding the button. You'll see a green light.
Yes, on. Okay.
There.
Let's say you're a startup organization and you want to build your brand, and your intention is to pass messages to your local communities, but at the same time reach international audience who might maybe be potential funders. So which of these social media platforms would you advise such an organization to start up with before picking up with the others?
Yeah, I think if you're going to look at platforms, Instagram is the big game right now. Instagram is really where it's at. It's visual, right? Everything has to be driven by an image. Surely for local or, community building, I would drive everybody to Instagram. That would be my opinion. International, big donor, etc., LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the business platform where, you can find executives. So LinkedIn's always going to be more business-minded, not consumer-oriented. Okay, so Instagram for the local community building, LinkedIn for the international benefactor building. Okay.
Hello, I'm Tinashe from Zimbabwe.
Hello.
What if you are operating in a rural setting where your target audience, they don't have access to these social media? So how effective are these social media for someone who is operating in a rural setting? Thank you.
The answer is not very. It's not very effective. And, I can go back 4 years to Mandela Fellows when we were still talking about no data, no Wi-Fi data, no data, and people were actually running generators to TV sets and showing people TV videos with generators. Okay, it's a problem. It seems over time more people have phones, more people have data that they can look at phones, but outside of it, it's not good. So then you're back to print and oral storytelling would be most important in communities. How can you gather people together? But you're correct. If people aren't connected, and that means connected into social media or having devices that work, I will be honest, it's not going to have a high effect. You're going to have to go back to community building, and that's, civic functions. Yeah, there's no other good answer for that. And once again, when I started and said I wanted to have a disclaimer, I understand there's many different applications and different types of communities where this may make sense, but it might not for others. I would still suggest for any of you, even if your local community isn't highly wired, the benefactors to your organization will be. So you can still keep reaching outside your community to try to find that funding and revenue, but it might not be reaching your local constituents.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Rebecca and I'm from Ghana. I don't have a question, but just to say thank you so much for the presentation. And if there are no other questions, I would suggest that you give us your last words and then we can conclude. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you for saying that. I think the last words are this. I'd be happy to help you. I want you to be successful. Back to what I said, I know it's a tough business. I know I'm asking a lot in what I'm suggesting you do. But if you want to be in this business, in the social media aspect of marketing and brand building, I believe in the steps I gave you are a good way to start. And that's a choice. Based on who you are, what you need to do, what you believe is best, those are all decisions you can make. But if you look at what I'll call today a plan, you can step through that. And again, connect with social media, and I'd be happy to comment along the way if in the future weeks or months you are working on these sort of plans. So with that, I'll thank you. I enjoyed the time, and once again, I appreciate the privilege of being able to do this virtually because I'm not able to be there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.